Hello everyone, I am Savitri Nagra, lecturer in Electrical and Electronics Department, Jain Polytech, Belgavi. I am handling the subject Fundamentals of Electrical and Electronics Engineering. In that, Unit 4, Introduction of Electronic Devices and Circuits. In this lecture, we are going to study active and passive components. Contents: active components, passive components, difference between active and passive components, semiconductors, properties of semiconductors, and types of semiconductors. First we will know what is meant by active components. Active components can generate the energy and supply the energy to the circuit. Active components like diodes, semiconductors, etc. Examples of active components: battery, generator, transistor, tunnel diode, triode, valve. Passive components. Passive components cannot generate the energy. In fact, they consume the energy from the source. These are the different types of passive components: resistors, capacitors, sensor, and inductor. Difference between active and passive components. Active components includes diode, transistors, SCR, batteries, cells. Passive components include resistor, capacitor, inductor, transformer, transducer. Active components requires external source to their operation. Passive component doesn't require any external source to their operation. Active components cannot store the energy. Passive components can store the energy in case of inductor and capacitor. Active components can be called as energy donor and passive components can be called as energy acceptor. Active components simple to design and passive components complicated. Semiconductor materials whose conductivity lies in between that of conductors and insulators are called as semiconductors. Examples of semiconductors are germanium, silicon, selenium, carbon, etc. Energy bands of insulators, semiconductors and conductor. The energy gap between conduction band and valence band of semiconductors is very narrow, about 0.7 electron volt to 1.0 electron volt of energy is required to bring the electron from valence bond to conduction bond. In insulator, the energy gap is 15 electron volt. In conductor, the energy band is 0. Properties of semiconductors. Resistivity of semiconductors lies in between that of conductors and insulators. Their conductivity increases with increasing temperature. The semiconductor has negative temperature coefficient of resistance, that is, the resistance decreases with increase in temperature and vice versa. Semiconductor is formed via covalent bonds. A semiconductor has crystalline structure, the arrangement of atoms or molecules in an orderly manner. Examples of semiconductors: op-amp, ICs, resistors, capacitors, transistor, diodes. These are the examples of semiconductors. Types of semiconductors. Semiconductor is further divided into intrinsic semiconductor and extrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductor is a pure form, that is germanium, silicon. Extrinsic semiconductor is further divided into two types: N-type semiconductor and P-type semiconductor. In N-type, pentavalent impurity is added. In P-type, trivalent impurity is added. Important questions asked: define semiconductor and list the different types of semiconductors. Write the difference between active and passive components. Thank you.